So I want to make a point about e-collars and fearful dogs, and it involves something kind of technical, something that's called an oppositional reflex in dogs. I'll define that clearly in a second, but I want to say first that with dogs that are highly fearful and anxious, and particularly, most importantly, dogs that shut down or army crawl and won't move, the best tool I think to use with them is actually the e-collar. And I don't rely on the e-collar heavily for basic obedience stuff or even for behavioral modification a lot of the time. Or if I do, I use it in a very particular way at low levels, and I tend to address things, say like reactivity. I do it very early, right? Um, with fearful dogs, it's different. With fearful dogs, I actually use it a lot at super low levels. Tap, 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 to get them moving, and particularly with dogs that shut down. Now, I'll explain why. And this is counterintuitive for people, but only because they have it deeply, this bias deeply embedded in their brain, which for the most part is not their fault because they've been assaulted by propaganda. But if you think of the e-collar as the most aversive tool or some type of torture device, then this is highly counterintuitive. But if you just take it for what it is, or you don't carry with you any strong biases, or you don't think, oh, electricity, because the dog certainly doesn't carry that construct in their brain. They don't have the idea of, oh, electricity, the electric chair, oh. Like, they don't have all that ideational baggage that we do. So if you can let that go, or it's not present when you think about these issues, then it's not a big deal. But it's largely due to the fact that people erroneously think of it as the most aversive, intense tool or whatever. It really isn't. It's primarily an off-leash training device. It's a communication tool. And correction in general, whether it's with a collar, a corrective collar or the e-collar or whatever, I don't really think of it as punitive in nature. Not for the most part. I think of it as a form of communication for the most part, particularly when it comes to command structure. It's like, do, 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 no, 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 here, here, here. And I'm indicating position to the dog mostly through correction. So somewhat tangential, but anyway, people need to really rid themselves of the notion that by correcting the dog, it's like punitive and harmful to the dog, and B, that the e-collar is the most punitive, aversive, harmful device that you can use. And it's probably the opposite if you use the e-collar correctly, because the pressure is localized. The thing I don't like about it is it's somewhat of an inorganic feeling to the dog. Anyway, it's a separate discussion. So why is it good with fearful dogs, particularly dogs that shut down? When you tug on a dog, right? If you're even if you have perfect leash work and you're kind of snapping the leash very skillfully, to some degree, because there is some pulling involved, right? Even if it's a quick snap, pop, and release, like I try to teach people, and it's sharp and quick, even if it isn't super intense, but it's fast. There's still some pulling going on, and people usually aren't going to do it correctly anyway, and they're going to tug and pull on the dog. What that engages in the dog is what's called an oppositional reflex, and when you pull on a dog and you distribute pressure and weight on a dog in one direction, and it's strong and it's forceful, the dog, particularly when they tense up, they're going to pull backward in the other direction. And it's a natural reflex that's present in all dogs to varying degrees. It helps them keep their balance. And it's also, I think, a natural reaction to sort of stress and just tension, anxiety, right? So it's going to be more present typically in dogs that are insecure or fearful. So you're engaging that reflex if you want to use the leash to snap them out of when they army crawl or shut down, right? So what you'd have to really do is do it a lot more forcefully typically. You can get there early, but if the dog has gotten to the point where they shut down like that, a lot of times you may have to jerk the leash, which you don't really want to do. I usually get them going through encouragement and light taps of the leash, but most people aren't going to do that, right? They're going to just gently tug or strongly tug. Either way, it feels confrontational to the dog. There's motion involved now. So to a scared dog already, motion startles them. So when you're moving a little bit, whether it's minimal or a lot of movement, that can cause more tension as well, and they may double down the oppositional reflex. And by the way, oppositional reflex, that's why harnesses are counterproductive. It distributes weight evenly across the chest along with pressure, and when you have that tension in the leash, they pull forward. And then it creates more tension, makes them pull forward more. This is why sled dogs use harnesses. Okay, this is why we use harnesses in protection work, because we want the dog moving forward to attack. And that pressure here makes them want to move forward. As you're pulling back, they're like, gang, 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 you know? So don't use a harness because it engages the oppositional reflex. So it's a very important thing to understand. Anyway, hello, Elvis. Good place, Maya, good girl. So you have this reflex that you don't want to engage, and that motion can be really counterproductive. So the best way out of it is the e-collar, and what it does is it's localized. There's no pulling involved, and the key is you keep it low level. Tap, 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 tap. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. That's it, good. And it can kind of just snap them out of it a little bit too. All right, so it's the best tool, I think, with fearful dogs generally, but particularly to address this one issue. It will get them moving immediately, and it's not. You don't use it at a high level, because now we might induce panic or something. You know, unless you have a super insensitive dog, it's rare. Low levels, a couple of taps. You know, I just use continuous mode. Bup, bup, bup. I use it like Nick. Get them moving. Naughty little thing. No baby, place. Oh, get them moving. Go ahead. Good girl. And they'll be fine. And then they get going, and you snap them right out of it. Now, if you let a dog win in those situations, they're going to go to the army crawl, the shutting down, every single time as their primary coping mechanism, anytime they feel anxiety. So by letting them do that, you're allowing them to suffer. So what's worse? A second, less than that actually, of a low-level, locally applied electrical voltage, okay? Or letting them just not walk anymore, and they don't get to travel, they don't get to go places. Don't be a dick and ruin the video, please. Thank you, good boy. Good boy. So anyway, it's not, to me, that's not a decision, and it's not a choice either. Out on the street, they don't have a choice. They can't shut down. I'm not going to let them suffer like that. Sorry. So anyway, my visual aids. This will be the last thing. Butchie has an incredibly strong oppositional reflex. See? Look. See that? Stubborn Staffy. Look at him. I'm trying to push him. See how he's kind of leaning back? Oh, boy. There's a good boy, huh? Stubborn guy. See? He's trying to... So, like, if I'm on the bed or the couch with him, not that you should let you... I won't get into that. Let's say I'm in a resting place with Butchie, who likes to lie around with me sometimes, and I try to move him over a little bit. You know, and I push it up. This is the shit he does. It's a pain in the ass. Nico's like that too. All right, and it's just a natural reflex. You see it in a lot of stubborn dogs, which of course, you know, he's descended from bulldogs, and you know, he's an American Staffordshire, so you're gonna get a lot of stubbornness. Maya doesn't. Okay, she's a fearful dog, but she doesn't shut down. But she's got some lingering issues with sunlight. The weather changed. So I'm trying to clean her up with that. It's like last little hurdle with her, but she's done an excellent job. But I also want to show you one other thing. I upgraded the collar with her. I'm using a Net Tech. She was previously doing great with a Star Mark. Okay, this is my favorite collar though. And again, counterintuitive, right? You'd think, oh, a heavier, more intense collar, more pressure. This is harder on the dog. No, quite the opposite actually. What I'm doing is the leash work is like, it's really very similar to how you would kind of lead a horse around. And it's boop, 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 boop. Way less motion. And what I like about, good girl. Even that was a little too hard. But like what I like about these harder collars is that they can really, really whisper, or you can turn up the volume a bit if necessary. Whereas you don't really have that option with the Star Mark. Star Mark is very, very, very light. It doesn't register with a lot of dogs. Stop it, Butchie. So anyway, again, that's another example where, like, to the human eye, oh, it's steel, or geez, look at the teeth. It must be, it's like stabbing the dog. It's ridiculous. Get rid of all these biases, that you're carrying with you when you start working with the dog, and understand the way that technique is applied, when done correctly, is dramatically different from what you might be imagining. And that oftentimes what may appear like something that's more aversive or there's more force involved is actually quite the opposite. So stop it, Butchie. And you see this, by the way, a lot with trainers that fucking brag about, oh, I would never use these tools. Like I wish I knew the guy's name. He was on YouTube. It was actually a force-free nutcase was criticizing him, and they were right. He used to have he was a Canadian guy. He had a TV show for a hot minute. He's a psycho. And he was, in the beginning of his show, he's like, prong collar, would you wear this? And threw it away, like, that's barbaric. Then he put a martingale on the dog. There's like footage of him, like, fucking dragging the dog. And he jerks the dog super hard because the dog gets nervous, shuts down, and then the oppositional reflex kicked in. He's like, his face is all mean and nasty. And people that try to market themselves, force-free people, are the worst with this because they lose their fucking shit on the dogs. There's great footage of like Ian Dunbar going bonkers on dogs, like, sick! Freaking out because that's all he's got now, is to lose his fucking temper. And me, I don't gotta do that because I'm just boop, 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 and we're communicating. And all say, oh, well, of course he listens. You're torturing him. Yeah, the dogs really look fucking tortured, Like, just look at the dog's body language. If you're apprehensive about these tools, look at the dog. The dog will tell you everything you need to know, okay? So, again, don't be swayed by this bullshit. Particularly with fearful dogs, it's so easy to feel sorry for them. And if you pity them, you are consigning them to a shitty life. They're not going to live a good life. For me personally, the best tool that I've found the best results with to get them going is the e-collar. And if you think about it, it's counterintuitive to a lot of people, but really if you think about it, and understand the tool, it's not. So keep that in mind. Low-level taps with the e-collar if they shut down or army crawl. It's critical.